period. Second, and most importantly, let's talk about what happened at Miss Young's house and to her. What I have seen is a video that was posted by a local TV station. As I understand it, the entire video is significantly longer. I will share with you my reaction to what I saw. I was completely and totally appalled. As a human being, as a Black woman, and as a parent. Yes, I am mayor. But absent that reality, I could have easily been Miss Young. I can put myself in her place. And I have been thinking since I saw that clip of the video about having police officers break down my door at night while my child was at home. All of that is horrifying to me. If you can hear that my voice is hoarse, it is because I have been unsparing in my comments to all involved in this colossal mess. Miss Young's dignity that she and all of us deserve was taken from her in those moments, and that is simply inexcusable. Her obvious trauma and distress were real, profound, and resonate deeply with me. And we should all be shaken by what she was forced to experience through no fault of her own. Ms. Young, knowing that my words will not change what happened to you and your family almost 2 years ago, I nonetheless say, I am sorry. What you experienced should never have happened, period. Unfortunately, Ms. Young is not the first or only person whose home was breached on the basis of the wrong information. And I cannot and will not ignore that this happens to Black and brown people disproportionately. The reporting on this has been extensive since I became mayor. That is why, after learning about the obvious problems in the search warrant processes used by the Chicago Police Department, in 2019, I directed the city's chief risk officer to evaluate the policies and practices and recommend changes. And she did. In January 2020, to January 3rd to be precise, almost a year ago, we compelled the Chicago Police Department to change its search warrant policies. The highlights of those changes are these. There must be independent collaboration of information received from a third party, and that third party cannot be paid or compensated for the information. Body-worn cameras must be worn at all times and activated. And if there was a wrong address, a CR investigation must be initiated. There are provisions to protect children because that's also been an issue. And 2 internal supervisors must sign off on a warrant before it is even presented to a prosecutor and the court. I want to clarify one other point that has been misstated. We are not, nor would we ever seek sanctions against Ms. Young. She is a victim. I directed the law department to file a supplemental pleading to make that abundantly clear. If there was a breach of the court's order, the lawyer, never Ms. Young personally, should be held accountable if the court determines that its order was breached. It was not correct. It's also not correct that Ms. Young was denied access to the video. The city provided her counsel with the video in March of this year, almost 9 months ago. I am a lawyer, a former federal prosecutor, the former head of the Chicago Police Board, and the head of the Police Accountability Task Force. I have spent a significant portion of my career, my life, not just advocating for police reform, but leading those efforts. It's part of what led me to run for mayor. My resolve on making sure that our police department is accountable for the way that it treats our residents, particularly residents of color, has not diminished. To the contrary, sitting where I now sit, I feel an even deeper resolve and have the responsibility to do something about it, which I have done and I will continue to do. That is why we made the changes to the search warrant policy almost a year ago. That is why I have directed COPA to finish its investigation on what happened before, during, and after this incident at Ms. Young's home. Now, respecting COPA's independence, that work needs to get done absolutely as soon as possible. It's been a year, get it done. That is the direction that I gave the head of COPA. That is also why my resolve around police reform and accountability is why we will be releasing the full length of the body-worn cameras that captured that incident, all of it. I've also directed a review of the city's video release policy to make sure that as it is as responsive now as it needs to be. I helped draft that policy in early 2016, which the former mayor adopted, but it is clear to me for some time that changes need to be made, and those changes will be made. I will also be calling upon the state legislature to make changes in the Body-Worn Camera Act, which was passed in 2016, to allow for more flexibility to release body-worn camera footage under circumstances like this one. And if Ms. Young consents, I have also directed the superintendent to ensure that this video of what happened in Ms. Young's house is used as a training tool for our officers. Our officers need to understand that when executing a search warrant on someone's home, it is a significant and traumatic event, that they have an obligation to ensure that the facts are right regarding the evidence of criminal conduct. The court and the prosecutor depend on that truth, and there is simply no margin for error. We cannot breach the sanctity of someone's home unless we have complete certainty of the occupant's criminal conduct, or that evidence of that criminal conduct will be found within those premises. I've also directed the law department to provide me with a review of all pending search warrant cases. If there are other wrongs that need to be righted, I intend to do so with all deliberate speed, regardless of whether it arose on my watch or under a previous administration. And I want to tell Ms. Young again, that I am deeply sorry and troubled that her home was invaded and that she had to face the humiliation and trauma that she suffered. That is just not right. It simply should not have happened, and I will make sure that there is full accountability for what took place. And now, Dana, I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. I have many on this topic. The first one is from me. You stated last night, again today, that you were not aware of this incident or this video until yesterday. You mentioned being blindsided. But last year, we talked to your office, and we know the police and law department were discussing giving Ms. Young the body cam video. So how is it you didn't know about it until yesterday?
Because it was not brought to my attention. I learned about it when I woke up yesterday morning and started seeing the news coverage. And that's a problem, and I identified that in my remarks. It should never have happened.
Marianne Ahern writes, there's a weekly FOIA meeting that the mayor's office has. It seems that Ms. Young's situation would have come up. It didn't come up with you
So let me
all?
be clear. I don't sit in those weekly FOIA meetings. I actually have a few other things that I do as mayor. What I know is this. that there was a FOIA request that was put in sometime in the summer of 2019 by your TV station to the Chicago Police Department. That's what I know now, but I did not know that then. I have no idea whether or not that surfaced or not. We get literally hundreds of FOIA requests, and mostly from media on a regular basis.
Ms. Young talked today at a news conference, and she said she wants accountability. You said that you will make sure that this is taken care of. Do you expect this could result in firings? And Greg Pratt from the Tribune wants to know, why did the city refuse to give her the video except under seal, and was the city trying to protect itself?
That is, Mr. Pratt's reporting has been reckless and irresponsible. Unfortunately, now a pattern of his, stretching back many, many months. My understanding is that the first time that Ms. Young, through her counsel, asked for a copy of the video was February of this year. That the court agreed to provide that video and ordered us to do so, and we did. And she's had it since March of this year. So this reporting that has been bouncing around the Twitter sphere and said that we were actively withholding the video from her is just simply not correct.
But can you elaborate on, and I'm sure this has come up in discussions, you talked about being hoarse because you spared no words with those who were responsible. Can you talk about why you were told that there was such a fight over this video up until Monday and its release?
You're putting words in my mouth that I did not speak.
Oh.
What I said is I learned about this incident yesterday morning, and being the lawyer that I am, I demanded accountability to understand what the facts are, and I started receiving those facts over the course of yesterday. So the first time that I even knew that this incident happened, that there was a lawsuit, any of that was yesterday.
I understand. What I'm asking is, since you've been talking with, I'm assuming, your law department and others about this incident since yesterday, as you say, what have they told you about why they fought so hard to keep the video from being released?
Well, I don't think that that's accurate. And obviously, my specific conversations with the law department are privileged, and I'm not waiving that privilege. But what I will tell you is that if you look at federal litigation, it is standard fare that there are protective orders. And this was actually something that was initiated, my understanding, by the court itself. So there was early stages of the litigation, a motion to dismiss is filed. I know from my experience as a litigator for 30 plus years, when you're filing a motion to dismiss a case, what you don't want to do is go through the time and expense of producing discovery. The plaintiff's lawyer was asking for discovery, in particular asking for the body-worn camera. The law department objected. Again, a very standard thing in litigation when there's a pending motion to dismiss. We're saying the lawsuit doesn't have any legs. Let's file the motion, let the court rule on it. If the lawsuit survives, then we'll deal with the discovery issues. That happens in federal court and really in state court every single day as a matter of course. So that's what the law department, my understanding, that's what the law department did back earlier this year. The court disagreed, said, give them the video, but I'm going to put a protective order on it. That's what happened. The video was produced, and Ms. Young and her counsel have had the video since March of this year.
Dave Savini and his producers are saying, actually, Ms. Young asked for the video by FOIA last year and was denied.
That's not my understanding. My understanding is that you guys asked for the video. It went up to the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General denied the FOIA request. If that's mistaken, I'd be happy to be corrected, but that's not my understanding. My understanding is that the only FOIA that was filed was from your office. It was denied based upon the body-worn camera statute. You appealed it to the Attorney General. The Attorney General concurred and said, given the plain language of the statute, it can't be disclosed. That's the last that I believe we knew anything about it until the lawsuit itself was filed. In the course of the lawsuit, the lawyer asked for the video. The court agreed. The lawyer was given the video under a confidentiality order.
Being the last one on topic, and then we can move to other matters.
Okay,
She can ask whatever she wants.
I'm
I
going,
mean, you can ask whatever you want. I'm here to put this facts on the table since there's been a lot of stuff that's been said over the course of the last 24 hours.
okay, well, we would appreciate, so not to get hung up on this point for the next 20 minutes, but we reported, and it is very clear, that Ms. Young filed a FOIA for this video last year and was denied.
So my understanding is something different, but I will have my folks take a look at that, and we'll sort it out. If she filed, she filed.
And was denied. I mean, that's part of this, too.
As I said, that is not my understanding, but if she did, then I stand corrected.
And then can you go back to what I asked you a little bit ago? Do you expect that this matter could result in some City Hall terminations?
I think that we need to get to the bottom of this. There's an active COPA investigation going on. I obviously wasn't happy about the way that this was handled. I'm here at City Hall. I've made that abundantly clear. I don't expect that ever to happen again. And should it, then I won't hesitate to take action.
And on this topic, a question from NBC Network, Shepard Smith's producer. So it may seem more general, but this is from a national perspective. Is the city, is the Chicago Police Department saying, I know there's a COPA investigation, saying they are at fault? The police department is at fault. The officers are at fault. It was the wrong house.
I don't think that those facts are known at this point, and I don't want to get ahead of the COPA investigation. I view the COPA's independence as absolutely essential, and I don't want to get ahead of those facts. My only point is, get it done. It's been a year. Get it done.
You know, you campaigned as a reformer. Some people today, critics, saying, well, this flies in the face of transparency, of a reform platform. I know you addressed that in your statement, your opening statement, but to those who may, including Ms. Young, who talked about how devastated she was after meeting you at her church, and hearing you talk about these topics, what would you say today to critics who doubt that you are reform-minded and do believe in transparency?
Well, I'm not going to convince people who are already convinced otherwise. What I have done since I've been mayor and what I will continue to do since I was mayor, I think speaks for itself. When I saw the reporting that was happening last year about the wrong address, pointing guns at kids, all these other issues that were reported, I initiated a top to bottom review of the search warrant policy. And that review resulted in significant changes, which I outlined here today. There was not enough, I think, being done to make sure that we were getting the facts right, that there was supervisory review before the search warrant application even got to the prosecutor or the court. I talked to the superintendent again today and told him, because this happened obviously January 3rd of 2020, before he came on board, I urged him, take a look again. And if there are more changes that need to be made, we will make them. This is about transparency and getting it right. This is about accountability, which I stand for, and I stand by that. There's always going to be critics about everything we do. I got up this morning, somebody's going to criticize me for that. But this is serious business, and what happened to Miss Young should not have happened. I watched that video in absolute horror. I showed it to my wife. We both thought about what could happen to us if we were in her circumstance. Why there's been such a visceral reaction is because we as black women put ourselves in her place. And how can we not? But aside from race, our home should be sacrosanct. Our Constitution allows for the breaching of that sanctity of our homes, but only under limited circumstances, only with review. And it should be a high bar, an exacting bar that is met. And so that's why I want to look at all these cases, all these pending search warrant cases. And if we got it wrong, we're going to make it right. Period.
Would you consider halting raids until any potential future oversight is corrected when it comes to officers simply checking not just the address, but an apartment number?
No, they've got to get it right. But here's the thing that I also know. Right now, today, there are dangerous people in our city who are doing harm in our neighborhoods. I also have an obligation to make sure that our neighborhoods, our residents, are protected from harm. So I'm not going to do something that I think will make our residents less safe. It's a balancing act, of course. But the controls that we put into place earlier this year, I think, are sound. If we need to change them, we will. But what you're asking is, I know that there's a ticking bomb in somebody's house, and I'm not going to do anything to do anything about it. Does that make sense, Dana? I don't think so. I know that there's somebody who's sitting on an arsenal of guns that they intend to use to harm people in our city. And I'm not going to allow the police department to execute a search warrant to take care of that issue. Does that make sense to you? No. So let's have some rationality and some balance. We've got to get this right. The bar has to be extraordinarily high and exacting. But what we can't do is just lay down and pretend that there aren't dangerous people out there in our city right now, today, that are doing harm. Let's use a little common sense, Dana.
Last question on this topic, and that is regarding officer discipline. Will that fall to COPA when it's investigation?
COPA has been set up to investigate exactly these kinds of issues. They will do the facts. They will make a series of recommendations, and those recommendations will then go to the superintendent. But I will be watching closely about what the facts reveal, for sure.
Okay. Moving on. Actually, I just got a question from somebody, but I'll have to go back to it. Moving on to a different topic. This is from Sarah Schulte at ABC7. How many Chicago hospitals have received the COVID-19 vaccine? And for those who haven't, why not? Why was Loretto Hospital able to get it before any other hospital?
Well, Loretto wasn't able to get it before any other hospital. We just wanted to make the point about the importance of the vaccine, particularly in communities of color, and it made sense to do it at Loretto. I don't have the exact number of which hospitals received it. The intent is to make sure that all of our 34 hospitals have access to the vaccine and have the infrastructure in place to make sure that they can start vaccinating their healthcare workers as quickly as possible. CDPH has been working with the hospital network now for weeks, if not months, to let them know something's coming, explain to them what infrastructure they need to have in terms of cold storage. The vaccine, once it's thawed, has to be used quickly. There's 5 doses in every vial. So all of that information has been rolled out to the hospital now for a while. But our intent is that every hospital will have access to the vaccine and be able to start the process of giving immunizations to its critical frontline workers.
From Jennifer Struzik, I believe, at Fox, about vaccines. Do you have an update on the number of vaccine doses the city will be receiving, and has there been a delay in shipments?
We put in an order for 23,400. We expect that to be coming in batches over the course of the next few days. With Moderna now seeking emergency use authorization, my expectation and hope is that they will also be granted that authorization, and then we will start to receive doses from them as well. So we're trying to move as expeditiously as possible, but obviously we have to have the doses in our hands to be able to do that. And some of these will go directly to the hospitals. Some will come to CDPH.
Okay. From Bill Cameron, how badly will Governor Pritzker's state budget cuts affect the city's budget?
I think it's too soon for us to know what, if any, impact it will have. I just saw yesterday that the governor had announced what were described as a first round of cuts. So we obviously will be following it quite closely, both in terms of our communications with the governor and his team, and obviously following what happens with the state legislature. But it's too soon for us to know exactly what the impact is going to be on us. Not surprisingly, we have asked for a little to no impact, given our own fiscal circumstances, in particular the issue regarding the local government distributed fund. We've asked for LGDF to at least remain flat and not cut. But those are discussions that we'll be having in the coming days.
As I was driving, and this is related, I heard Mitch McConnell and others talk about they're getting close to a stimulus. I thought I heard this, close to a stimulus agreement. Could that help both the cities and potentially the states?
No, unfortunately, my understanding is that the deal that's being struck, that the Democrats are unfortunately agreeing to, will not provide any funding for state and local governments.
A question on a different topic from Natalie Perez at Univision. This question, obviously, it's for you. Do you have any remarks regarding the plan to eliminate exemptions to Chicago's Welcoming City Ordinance that was introduced today, and how will this ordinance end years of fear in the undocumented community in Chicago?
Well, look, first of all, we have almost 600,000 people who in our city that are identified as immigrant and refugee. From the very beginning of our creation, you heard people today talk about the founder of our city, who was himself a Haitian immigrant. We are a city of immigrants and refugees. We have people that hail from literally every corner of the globe that call the city of Chicago home. It's important for us to speak our values. I said a year plus ago that as soon as we were able, because of pending litigation, to remove the carve-outs, that we would. And I am no less committed. I'm confident that we will get it done.
This may be a bit repetitive. This is from Fran Spielman. What do you think of Alderman Ray Lopez's moving to sender ordinance eliminating the Welcoming City carve-outs to the Rules Committee? She goes on to say he opposes eliminating exceptions, saying it could be hijacked by individuals wanting sanctuary for the small number of criminals in our midst who are also undocumented. Lopez said those criminals are, quote, terrorizing our neighborhoods.
Alderman Lopez has made a series of racist and offensive statements about immigrants and refugees, and unfortunately, today is no different.
Last two questions, Dana.
Okay. From one of our investigative producers, going back to the Ms. Young case, you talked about policy changes, but we've reported on 2 wrong raids since those policy changes were supposed to have been enacted. Does this mean you should sit down with Superintendent Brown and review these policy changes and make sure they're followed?
Well, I'm not familiar with the cases that you're identifying, but as I said in my remarks, I talked to Superintendent Brown. The changes that were made went into effect before he became the superintendent. I've urged him to review the policy, and if changes need to be made, changes will be made.
Last question.
I'm done.
Great.
All right.